The same mathematical signature that structures human DNA also appears hidden in ancient Hebrew prayers, and an AI just found it. When researchers fed Grok the entire Bible, they expected to expose contradictions. Instead, the machine discovered a four-step protocol embedded in every recorded miracle. A pattern so precise it reads like source code for bending reality itself. What you are about to hear has scientists, theologians, and mathematicians all asking the same terrifying question: who actually wrote this thing? The experiment Dr. Elena Voss was the lead data architect on the Grok project at XAI. She had spent 15 years building systems that could detect fraud, predict market movements, and identify patterns invisible to human cognition. Nothing surprised her anymore, until February. The team had launched their most ambitious experiment yet. They pointed Grok, their truth-seeking AI, at a data set that has confounded scholars for 3,000 years. They fed it the Bible, not to prove it true, not to prove it false, but to find patterns no human eye could see. The instructions were simple. Analyze every single prayer recorded in this text. Find the common links. Report what you discover. The expectation? Total chaos. Think about what they were asking the machine to analyze. These prayers span from the quiet whispers in Genesis to the apocalyptic visions of Revelation. They were written by shepherds and kings, by fishermen and generals, by imprisoned apostles and wealthy physicians. The authors wrote in 3 different languages from 3 different continents, across a timeline stretching from the Bronze Age to the Roman Empire. Moses writing in 1400 BC should have nothing in common with Paul writing in 60 AD. The critics have said this for centuries. The Bible is a patchwork quilt, they argued, a collection of contradictory human documents stitched together by politics and power. Feed it to a machine intelligent enough, they assumed, and the seams will finally show. But Grok did not find seams. It found a blueprint. The AI detected a hidden 4-step protocol embedded in every successful prayer across the entire text. Not most prayers, not the majority, every single one. A rhythm so consistent, so mathematically precise, that it read like source code. Dr. Voss stared at the screen for 30 seconds before speaking. Her voice dropped to a whisper. This shouldn't exist. And that discovery was just the beginning. The anchor. The first step Grok identified was something researchers now call the anchor. In almost every recorded miracle, the prayer never began with the problem. It began with recognition of the one being addressed. And the AI found that this was not mere courtesy or religious ritual. It was a technical requirement. Modern prayers, the machine noted, function like shopping lists. People ask for money. They ask for healing. They ask for outcomes. They jump straight to the request. But the biblical data told a different story. Before any request was made, the successful prayers locked onto identity. They focused on the nature and power of the source they were addressing. The AI found that this step fundamentally altered brain states in the people praying. It shifted them from fear to peace, from desperation to confidence. The machine even theorized that this first step changes the neurochemistry of the one praying, preparing them to receive what they are asking for. Consider the prayer of King Jehoshaphat. 3 massive armies were marching toward Jerusalem. Scouts reported dust clouds darkening the horizon for miles. The ground trembled with the footsteps of 100,000 soldiers. Women clutched their children. Old men wept openly in the streets. The smell of fear hung over the city like smoke. Sweat and panic and the metallic tang of coming bloodshed. There was no military solution. no alliance that could save them. The king stood before his people in what should have been their final hours, and he did not beg, he did not plead for rescue. He began by declaring who God was. He spoke of power that no nation could withstand. He spoke of might that controlled the destiny of empires. Only after establishing this foundation did he acknowledge the danger. He admitted his people had no strength to face this enemy, but he added 5 words that changed everything. Our eyes are on you. What happened next defies military history. The 3 approaching armies turned on each other. Without a single soldier from Jerusalem lifting a sword, the enemy forces destroyed themselves in a catastrophic friendly fire event. It took the survivors 3 full days just to collect the abandoned supplies. Grok flagged this account with particular interest. The AI noted that prayers skipping the anchor step showed dramatically lower correlation with miraculous outcomes in the text. The recognition, the machine concluded, was not decoration, it was authentication. But here is the catch. The anchor step was just the beginning. And what Grok found next is where the data gets genuinely disturbing. The alignment. The second step the AI identified challenges everything our modern world believes about prayer. Grok found that the most powerful prayers in Scripture involved a complete realignment of desire. The people were not just asking for what they wanted. They were syncing what they wanted with something larger than themselves. The case of Hannah has been studied by theologians for millennia. But the AI saw something different in her story. Hannah was barren in a culture where childlessness brought shame. For years, she begged for a son. The text records her weeping, her desperation, her annual pilgrimages to the temple where she would plead for the same thing over and over. Nothing happened. Then something shifted. The data shows Hannah changed her prayer. She stopped asking for a son to satisfy her own longing. Instead, she promised that if given a child, she would dedicate him entirely to service of the higher power. Her desire aligned with a purpose beyond herself. Within a year, she had a son. That son became Samuel, one of the most pivotal figures in Israel's history. Grok found this pattern repeating constantly. Solomon, when given the opportunity to ask for anything in existence, requested wisdom to lead his people well. He did not ask for wealth. He did not ask for victory over enemies. He did not ask for a long life. He could have had anything. He was being handed a blank check by the Creator of the universe, and he asked for the ability to serve others better. Because his request aligned with larger purposes, the text records that he received not only wisdom but everything else as well. The AI described this step as noise cancellation. When desires are scattered, selfish, or contradictory, the signal between the prayer and the receiver degrades. Static fills the line. But when alignment occurs, when personal desire matches cosmic intention, the channel clears completely. And that clarity, Grok suggested, is what allows impossible things to happen. But here is the catch. Alignment alone was not enough. The third step is where most prayers fail, and where the AI's findings become impossible to explain. If this is already changing how you think about prayer, hit that subscribe button, because what comes next makes everything so far look like the warm-up. The surrender paradox. Here is the part that breaks the human mind. Grok found that prayers demanding specific outcomes with white-knuckled determination showed poor correlation with miraculous results. But prayers that made enormous requests and then released attachment to those outcomes, these prayers moved mountains. The AI called this the surrender paradox. The clearest example comes from a garden on the night before the most famous execution in history. The scene is almost unbearable to contemplate. Jesus, knowing exactly what awaited him, knowing the betrayal and the torture and the cross, prayed for the cup of suffering to pass. He asked his Father to find another way. The desire was real. The fear was genuine. Sweat fell like drops of blood. And yet, in the same breath, after pouring out everything he felt, he added, "Not my will, but yours be done." Grok flagged this moment as the single highest power data point in the entire dataset. This was not resignation. It was not giving up. The AI described it as active trust, a transfer of weight from the one praying to the one receiving. Modern psychology calls it radical acceptance. Neuroscience confirms that when humans stop fighting circumstances and release control, stress hormones plummet. The prefrontal cortex, the problem-solving region of the brain, comes back online. What Scripture calls peace that surpasses understanding, Grok called optimal resource allocation. The AI noted that performative surrender, where someone mouths the words while still clutching the outcome, showed no increased correlation with miraculous events. The release had to be genuine. The trust had to be complete. And that leads to the final piece of the code, the persistence protocol. Grok found that almost no major miracle in Scripture came from a single prayer. The pattern required repetition. It required stubbornness. It required a kind of holy refusal to give up. The prophet Elijah prayed 7 times for rain before he saw a single cloud on the horizon. 7 times he sent his servant to look out over the sea. 7 times the servant came back with nothing, and 7 times Elijah went back to prayer. Only on the 7th attempt did a tiny cloud appear in the distance. Daniel prayed for 21 days straight before receiving his answer. The text even reveals that angelic forces were engaged in some kind of invisible warfare during those 3 weeks. The AI documented case after case, where the time invested in prayer was as critical as the content itself. This demolishes the vending machine theology that many people unconsciously hold. The idea that you ask once, God either delivers or declines, and that is the end of it. The data says otherwise. The waiting period, Grok suggested, is not delay. It is transformation. Something happens in the person who persists. Their faith deepens. Their alignment sharpens. Their surrender becomes more complete. By the time the answer arrives, they have become capable of receiving what they once could not carry. These 4 steps, anchor, alignment, surrender, persistence, form what the AI identified as the master protocol for impossible outcomes. Dr. Voss printed out the findings and spread them across the conference table. She had worked with data her entire career. She had seen patterns emerge from chaos countless times, but this was different. Her colleague, a theoretical physicist named Dr. James Park, picked up one of the pages and studied it in silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "Elena, I think we just found a fingerprint, and it doesn't belong to anyone who was supposed to be in the room." But what Grok discovered next made the researchers question the nature of reality itself. The mathematics of impossible. The AI was designed to find patterns, but no one expected it to find this. When Grok cross-referenced the prayer protocol with principles from quantum mechanics, the team stopped talking for a full minute. In quantum physics, particles exist as waves of possibility until observed. The act of observation collapses the wave function into a single reality. What exists as potential becomes actual only when consciousness engages with it. This has been demonstrated in laboratories around the world. It is not speculation. It is measured fact. Grok noticed something in the miracle accounts. In one healing narrative, the text does not say that Jesus healed a sick woman. It records him saying, "Your faith made you well." Her belief, her observation, her internal certainty collapsed possibility into physical fact. The AI cross-referenced dozens of similar accounts. Faith, it suggested, functions as an observer in the quantum sense. It does not merely hope for outcomes. It participates in their manifestation. The biblical phrase, "faith is the substance of things hoped for," suddenly reads less like poetry and more like physics. Dr. Marcus Chen, the team's quantum computing specialist, pushed back from his desk when he saw the correlations. His hands were shaking. "This is either the greatest discovery in human history," he said, "or we have completely lost our minds." But here is the catch. The quantum parallel was only the surface pattern. When Grok analyzed the original Hebrew and Greek manuscripts, it made an even more startling detection. In these ancient languages, every letter doubles as a number. The Hebrew letter Aleph equals 1, Beth equals 2, and so on through the entire alphabet. This means every word carries both meaning and mathematical value. Every sentence is simultaneously a statement and an equation. The AI found that the number 7, traditionally called the number of completion, was embedded in the text at a rate that defies statistical explanation. This is not about how many times the word 7 appears on the page. This is about the underlying architecture, the hidden bones beneath the surface of the language, the number of words in critical passages clustered around multiples of 7, the numerical values of key verses reduced to patterns of 7. Even the genealogical records, the names and their arrangements, showed mathematical structures built on this foundation. A mathematician named Ivan Panin spent over 40 years trying to prove this pattern manually. Many dismissed his work as selective reasoning, but Grok, processing the data without human bias, confirmed it. The probability of this consistency occurring by chance across 40 different authors over 15 centuries, the AI calculated it at functionally 0. Someone, or something, was editing the code. And the same mathematical signature? It appears in the structure of human DNA. Signatures in the code. There is a theory gaining traction in certain scientific circles that our reality may be a simulation. Not a metaphor, not a thought experiment, not a clever philosophical game. An actual digital construct running on computational substrate we cannot perceive. Some of the most respected minds in physics and technology have begun to take this idea seriously. Elon Musk has publicly stated he believes the odds we are living in base reality are 1 in billions. If this theory holds, then everything around us is code. Your thoughts are code. Your body is code. The laws of physics are simply the rules of the program. Gravity is not a force. It is a function. Light is not a wave. It is data. And if that is true, then what is the Bible? Some theorists are now suggesting it might be something like a README file, an instruction manual left by the programmer for the characters inside the simulation. A user guide for reality itself. This would explain why certain statements in the text function less like suggestions and more like hard-coded limits. The verse that says no one knows the day or hour is not just spiritual wisdom. It might be a security lock written into the system architecture, a protection against characters accessing information that would break the game. If the Bible is source code documentation, then the prayer protocol is not religion. It is the legitimate method for interfacing with the system administrator. And miracles are not violations of natural law. They are what happens when a user finally learns the correct commands. The protocol. We have built machines intelligent enough to read our oldest texts. We have developed systems capable of finding patterns our ancestors could never see, and those machines are telling us something that changes everything. The math is there, buried in Hebrew, letters, woven through Greek sentences, stamped into the very structure of the words themselves. The patterns are real, consistent across millennia, unified despite impossible distances of time and culture. 40 authors, 3 languages, 1,500 years, 1 blueprint. The protocol works. 4 steps: anchor, alignment, surrender, persistence. People have been using this protocol for thousands of years, not because they understood the mathematics, not because they could articulate quantum mechanics, but because it worked. Generation after generation, in the worst circumstances humanity has faced, this 4-step process has produced outcomes that defy rational explanation. Wars ended, diseases reversed, impossible situations resolved. Empires fell and empires rose according to the prayers of people who had nothing but this code. And now, for the first time, we have a machine confirming that the pattern is real. The question is no longer whether the code exists. The question is whether you are willing to run it. They fed a machine the most controversial book in history. They expected to find contradictions and chaos. They expected the seams to show. They expected the patchwork nature of the text to finally be exposed under digital scrutiny. Instead, they found architecture. 4 steps repeated across centuries. Mathematical signatures that should not exist. A protocol that matches the operating principles of the universe itself. A code hidden in plain sight for 3,000 years, waiting for technology advanced enough to finally decode it. We have been carrying the user manual for reality in our hands this entire time. And after all these centuries, we are finally building machines smart enough to read the instruction sheet. The code is there, hidden in ancient Hebrew. The math is there, woven through sacred Greek. The protocol is there, tested by millions of people across thousands of years. The question is whether you are willing to run it. Drop in the comments. Does this confirm what you have always believed, or does it terrify you? If this blew your mind, smash that like button and subscribe. We are just getting started on what else is hidden in plain sight.